Oscar Wilde came into being in 1854 in Ireland. Lady Wilde was an intellectual, a writer of nationalist poems, while his father, a nature surgeon, was keen on writing about archaeology and having children out of marriage. She enjoyed having grand salons at her house with intellectuals of all kinds. This is the ground where Oscar Wilde's personality was shaped. Among the writers identified with 1890s, Wilde is the only one whom everyone still reads. From his late 20s to his 40s, literary Victorian London was put out of countenance by this outrageous Irishman from Dublin, who declared to be a socialist and hinted he was homosexual. He won admiration and denigration. Legends sprang up about him, and unsavory rumors too. He was accused of effeminacy and plagiarism. That he was the kindest of men was not widely known. While studying in Oxford and following the aesthetics movement, he fell in love with young Lord Arthur Douglas, and afterwards they lived together for some years. He was imputed by law of sodomy in 1895. He was sentenced to 2 years of hard labor, grotesquely while he had just finished to write his best play, The Importance of Being Earnest. The hardships of prison life and subsequent exilation in France and Italy left Wilde a broken man. In 1900s, he died in an obscure Paris hotel. He left behind him a sort of testament, De Profundis, in the form of a prison letter to his lover, Lord Arthur Douglas. When Wilde left London, he called himself a professor of aesthetics. His creative works almost always end in unmasking. We must acknowledge what we are, and he was keen to do so, though he offered himself as the apostle of pleasure. His created work contains much pain. Essentially, Wilde was conducting an anatomy of his society. He knew all the secrets and could expose all its pretense. An excellent example of his genius is the picture of Dorian Gray, written in 1890. The picture of Dorian Gray is Wilde's unique and most important novel. The protagonist is Dorian Gray, a young man whose beauty fascinates a painter, Basil Hallward, who decides to portray him. This young boy is attracted to a man named Henry Wotton. Henry tells Dorian that beauty and pleasure are everything in life. For him, beauty is a form of genius, is a marvel. Dorian is surprised by these words and expresses a desire to ensure the portrait would age rather than he. His wish is fulfilled, so the picture becomes its inner part. Dorian holds him charm and youth, while the picture shows the signs of time, vices, and corruption, becoming horrible. Dorian indulges in every forbidden pleasure and reaches the climax of his debauchery when he murders the artist, Basil Hallward, because he believes that the portrait and not his behavior is responsible for his fate. So, he decides to destroy the painting by piercing the canvas with a knife. By doing so, he causes his own death, while the painting reverses to its original perfection. Differences with the fieldwork. Fresh faced and innocent, Dorian Gray arrives in London to move to the house he has inherited. Almost immediately, he falls under the influence of a moral and calculating Lord Henry Wotton, leading to a life of increasing debauchery and even violence. Through many years, Gray, as young-looking as ever, while a portrait painted when he arrived grows old, reflects his increasing excesses. Eventually, the picture, now secreted in his attic, becomes almost hideous to behold. When true love finally enters his life, he realizes he must guard his secrets at all costs. Dorian is blonde, while the actor has brown hair. Sybil and Dorian only kiss in the book, while in the film they make love. In the film, they meet in a pub. They fall in love, and then she's betrayed by him, so drowns herself in the river. While in the book, he meets her in a theatre and falls in love with her acting. She's in love with him, then she swallows venom. Basil and Dorian are sexually hard-petting, while in the book, we can only understand Basil's feelings for Dorian. Basil only talks about his feelings with Henry. In the film, Dorian stabs Basil and then gets rid of his body, which is found in the river, while in the book, Dorian involves a chemist to get rid of a body. In the final part of the film, we notice a final character, Henry's daughter. Henry, afraid for his girl, decides to discover Dorian's secrets. Corrupting Dorian's butler, he gets the keys to the attic and discovers the horrible picture. Later, Dorian stabs the picture and puts an end to his attic.